And there it is. Welcome, folks. I think we're live. Are we live? Let me go ahead and make sure. I have to do this every single time. I don't know if my special guest has to do this every time because he's got his fancy software, but I have to do this every time, and it's really annoying to make sure that I'm on live. Welcome, folks. Tank Talk Live. We do this every single Thursday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I see we've already got a bunch of people in the chat. That is exciting. Let's talk about a couple of very quick things before we get started, and then I'll introduce my special guest for the day. He's not a special guest. He's been on like 5 or 6 times, but anyway, wanted to let you know that I'm doing a special on the KGTropicals.com website. This is something that is going to go through this Sunday. It's a celebration of Veterans Day. Having a child, it's not a child anymore, but having a child that is in the Marine Corps, Veterans Day is a big deal for me. So to celebrate that, we're doing 10% off of your entire order on KGTropicals.com. Just put VET, V-E-T, in the promo box at checkout, and you'll get the discount. And, of course, if you spend $59.99 or more, you get free shipping. So, I mean, that's like the deal of the century. So, anyway, that's that. We added a bunch of new stuff too, by the way. I'm not going to go through what all that is, but we've added a bunch of new stuff to the website. So head over there, check it out. I don't think I put it in the description. Did I? I don't know. I was out. Yes, it is. It's in the description down below. Click on that. Don't forget to put VET, V-E-T, in the promo box and get your discount. So today I've got a good topic to start this show off with. And it came from an email. And the email talked about me and Corey from Aquarium Co-op. So I immediately got on the horn with Corey. I said, hey, we got to get on the live stream and talk about quarantining fish. And of course, he was ready to go because Corey's always ready to go. He's ready to do this. He knows what he's doing. So let me give him an opportunity to talk. I don't need to introduce him because y'all know who he is. If you don't, then I don't know what you've been doing for the last year or so when his channel's been absolutely blowing up. So, Corey, say something a little bit. Take over here for me for a second. And
how's it going, guys? I'm here, and I'm definitely special. I see people saying maybe I'm not. I'm a special kind of special. Let's be real here. I don't know. I'm not saying that's a good kind of special, but it's a special kind of special. I do want to reference my goldfish behind me. If they act weird, they actually have medicine in them right now. If you guys have been watching my videos, you know that when I was at the Chicago experience, like 2 days before that, I had a brand new heating system put into the fish room. It elevated the temperature by about 4 degrees in this little studio room, which stressed out all the goldfish. And but now they're doing way better. They're swimming around, they're eating, and I think we're going to beat it. But if you guys are watching this in the future, like, why does this tank look terrible? There's meds in there. Water levels down a little bit, and they are making recovery. For any of my fans that are actually watching, you guys haven't seen this yet, but they are on the mend, and we haven't lost a single thing. So perfect time to be explaining medicines and quarantine when you've got sick fish right behind you. So
the one, I'm not sure exactly which one it is, but one of them that was behind you was the one that when we did our surprise live stream the other day was kind of laying down on the gravel, and I see he or she is up and about now, so that's cool. It seems to be, whatever you're doing seems to be working. I apologize, I'm not up to date on your videos, so I don't know exactly what it is that you're doing, but that's cool. At least they're up and about, and for once my tank is clearer than yours, which is weird because
you got me beat for sure.
But the funny thing about yours, the fish are popping like extreme right now, and I guess it's because the water's a little gray, so it's really making them pop. So it actually looks really good today. So, all right. So let me go ahead and read this email that came in that mentioned both of us. We're going to get right into this. We're not going to mess around tonight. We're going to go right for it. The email came from a gentleman by the name of Brian McGowan. It reads as follows. John, I am getting back into aquariums after about 20 years. And between you and Aquarium Co-op, I watched almost all of yours and Corey's videos. My question, Corey says that you need to quarantine every fish that goes into your tank. You have a different opinion. I have a tremendous respect for both of you and have learned from both of you. What should I do? I am very confused. I'm installing a 55-gallon for subtropical and live plants using a Sun 404B filter, LED lights. I am not that far from you and hope to stop down and visit your store. Well, of course, the first thing that I'm going to have to say is, Brian, thank you very much for sending the email and giving me some content to talk about tonight. But you're not going to be able to come down and visit me. We don't have our store anymore. It's unfortunate, but we closed it down early last year. A lot of people still don't know that. I get emails all the time. You know, what's your address? What are your hours? When can I come down? And that's because they're watching my older videos and they think that I'm still there. So it's sad, but it's true. We don't have the store anymore. So sorry about that. But to answer your question, Corey and I are probably going to go back and forth several times on this because, I mean, it's not a really involved topic, but you know the way Corey and I like to talk. I'm gonna start it off here, Corey, and kind of take the lead on this and then turn it over to you. My response to that, to quarantining, what, you know, should you quarantine? How important is it? My response is probably not what you think. I've told people many times in live streams that I do not quarantine. It's not because I don't think it's right. It's because I just don't. And I'll go through my reasons as to why that is. But my belief and the, you know, the way I feel about this topic is that you absolutely should be quarantining your fish if you're able to. And that's just the thing. Not everybody's able to quarantine their fish. So when it comes to Corey and my differing opinion, we really don't differ in opinion. It's just that he's practicing quarantining and I'm not, because I'm the idiot of the duo. Corey is the one that's right when it comes to this. If you have the setup, if you have the tank space available, you should absolutely be quarantining your fish. I mean, I'm not going to go all scientific because I probably can't go all scientific like Corey can, but it's something that you should certainly do. Why? You want to make sure that those fish are clean before you put them into your tank with a bunch of expensive fish. I mean, I don't know, nor do I care how much money is in this tank right here, but it's a lot. And you put one $5 fish in there that happens to be infested with something and it spreads throughout the tank, that's going to be a huge nightmare. And it's all from a $5 fish. Who cares about what these fish's value is? But, you know, you'd be really upset if you have thousands of dollars worth of fish in your tank and one $5 fish from PetSmart ends up wiping them all out. So the absolute rule of thumb should be that you should quarantine your fish. Making sure that they're not bringing anything into the tank. I'm sorry, I got off track there because I was saying, why should you do it? You should do it because you want to make sure they don't have anything that they're going to spread throughout your tank. And the only way that you can do that is by isolating them in a quarantine tank and medicating them and all of that, putting in some medications into there to make sure that they're all good and cleaned out, good and healthy before you put them in with the rest of your fish. That's why you quarantine, and that's why you should quarantine. I'm going to let Corey take over here and give his philosophy on it. And then when we come back, or when it comes back to me, I'm going to talk about what I do, why I do it, and I'm going to talk about if you don't have the ability to quarantine. You might be 14 years old watching this right now, and you have one tank in your bedroom, and quarantining is not an option for you. Well, I'll give you my advice on what to do if that's the case, what I do and what I think everybody should be doing. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Corey. Don't badmouth me too much.
Oh, I wouldn't badmouth. I mean, if you're going to play the idiot, you get to play the beautiful idiot, which means I'm the smart guy, which means I don't get to be beautiful. So when I talk about quarantining, I do say we should always quarantine everything. And that I do practice that. I do recommend people practice that. But a lot of people assume I always mean quarantining in a different tank. And I don't always mean that. Is that better? Yes, for sure. If you have extra tanks, quarantining another tank is amazing. But what I do believe most fish I come in contact with, or you as a hobbyist or whoever, you know, let's say 7 out of 10 fish you will ever interact with will probably have some type of internal parasite or gill fluke, something on it or in it, or a bacterial infection that will constantly plague that fish for the life of it. Now, you may never see the symptoms. Like a lot of times an angelfish can have tapeworms, but because they're such an aggressive eater, you don't notice it. In an Oscar, maybe they have hexamida, but you don't realize it until they're 4 years old because it's finally wearing away their lateral line or causing pitting on their face. The reality is they've had it the entire time. So if we know we're running into these things fairly often, let's say it's a 70% chance that we will have an illness, I find it better to go ahead and just start treating and get some kind of method. And that maybe is the more important part of this conversation, is some kind of routine that you follow every time you get a new fish, so that at least you can explain what's been done, what's been working for you, what did I change that didn't work. So let's say you do only have one aquarium and you're bringing new fish home. I think a lot of it comes down to you got to evaluate the risk. So if you have a neighbor that lives right next door to you and he's one of the biggest African cichlid breeders in the world, and in general his stuff is known to be healthy, and he's you think he's doing a good job and you've seen what he does, I think it's reasonable to add that fish straight to your aquarium and hope that it works out well. Now, let's say you've done that, and then a month later you go buy one from a pet store, and then 3 months later you're getting some from online. I think at that point you've got a reasonable expectation that there is some disease or parasite in your system, and it might make sense to use some medicine there. And there's people that say, well, maybe they're going to get resistant to it and things like that. That is always a possibility, and in general, I don't think at a hobbyist level we can really do that. Maybe at the farm level, or a very big breeder who's really producing fish and he's really using meds all the time, willy-nilly, and not trying to eradicate, but just, the problem really stems, if I'm getting wrapped up into this, but it gets wrapped. I run into a problem when the farm is using a medicine just to clean it up enough to get it to a store. It didn't eradicate anything, but we just got it close or good enough to sell, and that does kind of play on to maybe we're building some resistances and stuff like that. But that being said, something as simple as salt, tried and true, has been used for a long time, is still effective at a lot of things. And a lot of the meds we've used for many, many, many years, still very effective. There are some that no longer are very effective. And, that's unfortunate. But really that stems from the farms that literally might have a 20,000 gallon pond, and they go, oh man, we have such a bad problem with flukes or anchorworm. Let's just keep meds for anchorworm in there all the time. And that over time, as they're breeding generation after generation, 10 years down the road, they're going to find, oh, we got to up the strength we were putting in there because it's not quite doing it anymore. And that's where we run into problems. So in your own aquarium, let's say my goldfish tank right here behind me, if I was going to add one goldfish to that from my store, I think it's reasonably healthy, because I know at my store I've already quarantined it, stuff like that. But let's say I added one fish today and 2 fish tomorrow, and then a month down the road I add another fish. At that point, I would wager that there's probably some internal tapeworms or something that's made it through, and I would treat the entire tank. So even though it's my display tank, I would still treat it. And most of the meds that I like to use aren't super invasive, and I think that's a big problem people run into is, so like the meds I have on my desk, I've been treating this tank. I've got some erythromycin. We use it for humans. We use it for cats, dogs, fish, all that type of stuff. Relatively mild, in my experience, has not killed the beneficial bacteria and things like that. I use ICX, which is a mild antifungal and external parasite. And I have snails in this tank. It's perfectly fine for snails and catfish and plants. That being said, if I was to replace this with, let's say, Copper Safe or Coopermine, it'd have copper in it, boom, plants would be hurting, snails would be hurting, well, they'd be dead. So it really depends on the meds too. And so it is hard for us to recommend to quarantine everything, and having an extra tank is pretty much always better. And the more you can separate out, the better I think it is. And, I hope that at the end, you're at least aware of what you're doing. If you choose not to quarantine it, that's fine. But you know you're making that choice. You don't go into it going, oh, wish someone had said, these are the risks I'm handling here. Just like if you have a friend in the car and he just refuses to put a seatbelt on, even if you go, well, really, you should maybe wear that seatbelt. And they're like, no, I've done all the research, I've done the studies, and I believe that my chances in a car accident will be better without that seatbelt. At least they're very well educated on it and not, going into it blind. So what else do you got, John? Because I know I can go on forever, and I've got other things I want to touch on, and,
Well, I mean, the biggest thing that I wanted to talk about was, you are going to have people, and in fact, I've already seen people in the chat saying things like, I just can't see having an empty tank sitting around, or people that don't have the room for it, or maybe they're just not as into it as we are. What should people in that situation do? And I would say do what I do, but that doesn't mean that what I do is right. It doesn't mean that, you should do what I do because I'm doing it the absolute optimal way. I'm doing what's best for me. I don't have a tank sitting here that is empty of fish, just waiting for me to add new fish. I don't get new fish enough to justify something like that. And I only purchase fish from places that I trust for the most part. Now, I know that sounds really weird, but like this tank right here, there's two places that I've gotten fish from that went into this tank. One is Live Fish Direct, which everybody knows I'm affiliated with. I've worked with them for years. I've been working for them. I know their system. I know the way they raise their fish. I know, their fish are born in one hatchery. They're brought over into another building where they're, they grow out in another building and then they come in. They're all in the same water. They're all in the same system all the time. And now, but even that's not 100% foolproof, but I know their system and I know the way they do things. And I am confident that when fish come in, they're clean. The other place that I got fish from for here is the Cichlid Shack. I've known James Largo for a long time, and I know that he would not dare send me a fish that he knows is going to be seen in every single one of my videos that could possibly be sick. So the point that I'm trying to make is buying from places that you trust is the critical thing. My discus these came from Live Fish Direct. The only other place that I could see myself getting discus from would be Discus Hans. I've been to his facility. I've got videos of it on my channel. And no offense, Corey. I mean, I know you sell discus. I can drive to Hans right up the road. So Hans, I've been there. I know his system. I've helped him do water changes at his system. I mean, I know how that place works. I know what he does. I know how he cares for fish. And it's kind of like buying fish from Aquarium Co-op. I mean, he makes sure that he is selling you fish that are absolutely ready to go. And Live Fish Direct is the exact same way. So that gives me the confidence that when I put fish in there, they're going to be good. Now, this fish down here, this tank down here, is full of fish from PetSmart. It is. It's full of fish from PetSmart. So if I had like a community of cardinals that I wanted to put in here, I'd probably put them in there first. And I know that sounds mean, but I've got a bunch of nickel and dime fish down there that I would be heartbroken if something were to happen, but not as heartbroken as I'd be if something happened with the discus. So, if I only had one tank, though, if I had one discus tank or one African cichlid tank, there'd be a lot of places that I would not buy fish from just because I know where they came from before they got to that store. I know the way they're taken care of at that store. So I would avoid those. And so that's the biggest piece of advice is knowing where you're buying the fish from. And then, like Corey said, if you are still nervous about it, using medications, just go ahead and medicate all of the fish that are in your tank. You got a 125-gallon discus tank. You put 2 new discus in. Medicate the whole tank with something. I mean, I've used General Cure. I don't think you mentioned that. But the erythromycin is a great product, too. I like Paragard, which is only for externals. But, something like that is not an extreme medication, but it's a mild medication that's not going to harm the fish that don't need to be medicated. That's what I would do. So buying from a place that you trust and going ahead and medicating them while, once you put them in the tank, that's what I would do. And that's what I do. You just made me say do. But that's it. I mean, but in a perfect world, we would all be quarantining our fish. We would be quarantining them in a separate tank where they're completely isolated, and we can monitor them for several weeks. You were talking before we went live, 6 months. I mean, okay, in an ultra perfect world, but monitoring them for several weeks, making sure that they're cleaned out. And you know what's funny is that once you feel like they are completely cleaned out, you can put them in the tank and they could still have something. You never really know in this hobby. It's hard. It's very, very hard. Buying from somewhere that you trust, that you have confidence in, is the name of the game, as far as I'm concerned. And if you find a place like Corey's that quarantines all of their fish that they sell, that's like gold. And I'm not trying to pump up Corey. I don't need to pump up Corey. It's true, though. I mean, if you can find a place that is that dedicated, that will literally have their fish sit for weeks before they even make them available for sale for you, that's a win-win as far as I'm concerned. So pay attention to where you're buying your fish.
So I've got some tips on where to buy fish, stuff like that. There's some fish that are naturally going to be less likely to get diseased, and so that might be something like a betta. If you can, like, let's say all you had was a chain store near you. If you can get there like the day the bettas get there and get it out of the cup or the bag they buy it in, the reality is that betta has probably never touched water with another fish ever since it was an egg, basically. Like, the minute they can catch them out, they're going to separate them out. And so, that would be relatively disease-free, because it's hard to spread disease. If I've never met another human before, it would be unlikely that I'm going to catch most flus and colds and things like that. And the same thing goes for fish. So with bettas, it can be very easy. Now, that being said, let's say it sits at that chain store for a week or two. Hopefully they're doing their water changes, and that's where you can run into a problem, because they're going to pour that water into a net, put the fish back into the new cup with water, and move on. And likely you can use that same net the whole time. That could cross-contaminate a whole bunch. But you can hedge your bets, and I think that's an important thing when you're choosing where you're going to buy your fish and things like that, is what are my risks, what's my odds here, things like that. And focus on so here's my philosophy on why I quarantine fish and why I show it on YouTube and stuff like that. I want the open kitchen philosophy. For instance, if you were to have a bad meal, you go somewhere and you're like, man, this is just horrible, or you got sick afterwards, you're going to assume that it was the restaurant's fault, they were serving bad stuff, they weren't clean, they weren't doing what they're supposed to do, and that's because you couldn't see what's going on. Even if they were doing everything perfect and they didn't do anything wrong, there's still that 0.11% chance you could get a foodborne illness, right? But if you go to this restaurant and it's all open kitchen, you watch them make the food, man, they're pros, they look so good, all their clothes look great, you can't find a speck of anything wrong in the entire place, and then you get sick, you start thinking, well, maybe it was McDonald's I had earlier. You almost put the blame off on them, or from them. So I like to do the same thing. I like to be very open. Let me show you stuff dying. Let me show you stuff thriving. Let me show you stuff getting medicated, things like that, so that you can make an educated decision if you buy from me. And, just like Discus Hans, stuff like that, Hans Discus, when we start looking and you get a YouTube video and you get inside their facility, you can really see how it's run. Like, okay, they're running a circulating system. Oh, they're only ever bringing in discus from one breeder ever. That right there eliminates risk. And when I've taken classes on diseases and things like that, the most interesting thing I learned, and a few people have heard me say this before, is that a lot of diseases and parasites are like country specific because they thrive. So let's say ick might be rampant in Thailand, and I don't know that to be true, but let's say it was rampant in Thailand. It really thrived because of the water condition. It was just hard enough or just soft enough, and then the temperature was just right that, man, they have a really hard time in it. But then over in Sri Lanka, maybe they've got tons of velvet because the water is very acidic and it tends to thrive in acidic water and things like that. So, you know, if you buy guppies here and you buy guppies here and they come in and hit the same tank, you can literally bring velvet and ick and cross-contaminate each other. And so, you know, buying from few sources like John does in some of his tanks, that can help a ton because you're not going to cross-contaminate just even from different vendors. And, you know, but there's going to be times when, only this person's got this fish, only that person's got that fish. And, you know, you got to kind of just take it one step at a time. Just because someone has a great reputation, just because everyone says, you know, Aquarium Co-op has great fish, doesn't mean we don't have an off day. Just because you go and have dinner at the latest celebrity's restaurant and everyone says it's 10 stars, couldn't be better, that they couldn't have a bad day either. So you can only go on, odds are I'll have a good experience purchasing fish from this local breeder, this store, this whatever. And you go by track records. And if your local chain store has a poor track record, you just know your odds are low that you're going to have a good experience. If you've got the best Petco or best PetSmart around, and you know that team, and you know they really are doing everything, and they've just got everything great, you can feel as safe as buying from me probably. But it's all calculated risk. And the last thing I want to touch on, the only reason I didn't show General Cure is I don't have it sitting here, but I also have that in the big pound containers because I use that a ton. It's my favorite kind of deworming agent, and I use it on every fish that I come in contact with. And for me, because I touch so many fish and things like that, I do run the policy of treat every fish every time. Because for me, when we're looking at that risk versus reward, imagine I just choose not to treat one batch of 5 goldfish, but those 5 goldfish magically get dispersed into different tanks, or somehow the net I used in there didn't get sterilized enough, and now it gets used in this tank of cardinal tetras that, you know, cost me $1,000. So I've got so much to lose, just so much. You know, all I can say is evaluate your risk. If you've only got one 10-gallon tank and you've only got zebra danios, your risk might be pretty low. The next person might say, well, I value the life of a fish more than any dollar amount, stuff like that. To them, the risk is very high, and I would encourage them to take the best care they can. But the reality is it's a personal question on each person on what they want to do. And that's why there's some great fish stores, there's some bad fish stores, there's great breeders, there's poor breeders. You know, you just got to evaluate where you want to buy. So that's the best advice I can give. And then likewise, make sure you're doing something. Even if you choose to do nothing, make the choice you're choosing to do nothing. That way, at least then you're aware of what you're doing.
Very good. I mean, what am I going to add to that? I mean, that's well said. I mean, and you know what? We could beat this to death for the next 45 minutes, but why? I mean, you know, do it if you can. If you don't, stay on your toes. And if you can't, then stay on your toes. And, you know, do what you know is right. Take care of your fish. And if you can medicate them after buying them, then go right ahead. I'm a little bit distracted here because we have a celebrity amongst us, Corey, that you may not have noticed. I don't know.
I didn't notice. I was too busy like getting crazy and ranting.
Brad Pitt is. Oh no, I'm just joking. It's Jacob's Aquariums is with us tonight, so that's cool.
Wow,
Jacob.
I haven't seen him in a long time. He's got the new nursery going on. I saw his latest video where he was using Kessel lights. I was examining the whole system and everything. Like, so I totally did catch that video.
Yeah, I went on his live show long ago. You know, somebody Somebody else did a live stream, and I got a message saying, "Oh, John's you're getting copied. Somebody else is doing a live stream." And I'm like, look, Corey was live streaming well before I was, so it's not like I was the originator of it. But you know what? Jacob was live streaming way before any of us. That was a long time ago. It was probably 2 years ago when I was on his live stream. That was a lot of fun. I did it from a closet, literally a closet at my shop. It was kind of funny, but that was a good time. So welcome, Jacob. Good to see him back in it, and hopefully he stays with it for the long haul, because Jacob's kind of like me. He'll go like hardcore and then disappear for a little while. And I've done that many, many times myself. So Jacob's face is one of those faces that just makes me smile. And I don't mean that in an insulting way. It's like a comforting face that Jacob has, and his way of doing things it's just relaxing, and I just love it. So glad to have you, Jacob. That's enough kissing his ass.
I wanted to add one more thing to quarantining, just because
oh dear God! All right, let me relax here. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, if you can't have a quarantine tank and all that, my best advice is pre-buy the meds. At some point in the next 2 years, you're gonna have a problem. If you go to John's site and buy meds, or my site, or whoever, but have some quick hits in your possession of like, oh, ick's a pretty likely one. Have something to fight ick. Have something to fight a bacterial infection, so you're not stuck noticing it on a Sunday night going, oh no, all the stores are closed, or even worse, the store is open, but you get there and they've only got the worst remedies available. Yeah, it's going to set you back $30, something like that. You put it off to the side, and it's kind of like having, the best front door lock on your house. Oh, I never needed it. No one ever kicked in the door. You'll be super happy that you never needed that lock. Just like if you come back to me in 2 years and go, Corey, I never needed medicine. You made me waste $30. I'm going to look at you and say, that's the best $30 you've ever spent. You never needed it? Come on. So invest early. Don't wait until you have the problem, because I'll tell you what, day one fighting ick, you might beat it in a day or two. You wait till day 5, now it's a 2-week process to beat that. It's horrible, and you might have lost some fish already. So do yourself a favor, hop on, use the vet sale, VET, grab your meds, get them shipped to you, put them away, and just wait for a rainy day that's going to come someday, and if it doesn't, you'll be happy.
I'm so glad that you said that, because it is absolutely true, and that's something I've said many times, not trying to be a salesman to anybody, but these are products that you should have sitting around. I've done a couple of videos on it, like 5-10 things that every fish keeper should have at all times. And some of these meds that we're talking about are on that list of things that every fish keeper should have. And what I've said in those videos is it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. Because like you said, it never happens at the right time. It happens at 9 o'clock at night on a Sunday. And what do you do then? Or maybe you live in one of those areas where your local pet store is closed on Sundays and it happens Saturday night, and so you can't get out to anywhere till Monday. Just don't risk that. Just have it available. Yes, the stuff is expensive, but what in this hobby is not expensive? I mean, come on. So have them available just in case. I'm so glad that you brought that up. So yeah, I don't know that we need to really go on that anymore, do we? 34 minutes. I mean, the way you like to talk, the way I like to talk, I'd say we did pretty good for a topic like that, doing it in 30 minutes. That's nice. So what do you think? You want to open things up to questions? You want to talk about the election? What do you want to talk about?
Well, I always like to avoid religion, politics, stuff like that. I always like helping people, so I'm going to lean towards helping people.
Yeah, I have no reason to talk about politics because I don't care. I stay away from it. I worked in the epicenter of politics for 5 years, and I saw the real deal, and I just gave it up at that point. It's nothing really even worth following. So let me scroll through here. Everybody's freaking out because Jacob's in the chat. So let's see if there's anything.
I know one question we can answer while you're finding questions, because I didn't touch on it and I felt bad. Someone was asking how to keep a tank cycled for a quarantine tank, and that's a good question because, if you don't buy fish very often, it's going to sit there and not be cycled. My best advice to you is to have a filter on the main tank, whether it's a sponge filter or just a little hang-on back. Just let it sit there, do its thing, and when you do buy new fish, just move it on over, and boom, you got a bacterial load ready to go. And then, let's say, people always ask this, like, well, what do you do when it's done? Like, what if it's sick? Those fish are going into the aquarium, so if they're sick, the disease is already going with them. So you can move the filter back, don't worry about that. If they all die, like, oh God, it was a massacre, it was horrible, then go ahead and sterilize it with like a bleach solution or something like that and just restart the entire thing. But that's the easiest way I find for people. That way you can kind of break down the aquarium, or it doesn't even have to be aquarium. You can use a Rubbermaid toad or something like that, but you'll have a good bacterial colony ready to go whenever you need it. Or like, John's always playing with Africans. If you get one that's just getting beat on and you need to put them into the hospital, just move that little filter over there. Boom, you're ready to go.
Very good. Yeah. Can we get away from it now? Can we stop talking about quarantining now?
Sure. Just grab another question.
I'm just messing with you. No, that was a good point. There was a question, and even though you don't have children yet, I haven't even talked to you about kids. I don't know if you're ever planning on having any or what, but being that this is your livelihood and this is your profession, I'm sure you can still answer this. Daniel Quinn said, just had a baby boy. Congratulations, Daniel. Any tricks on baby proofing? Now, I'm assuming that he's asking baby proofing from a fish keeping standpoint, because he knows how to baby proof his house. I'm not going to talk to him about, putting the little plugs in the thing and all of that kind of stuff, because I didn't do any of that stuff. I mean, my daughter turned out with all her fingers and toes. But when it comes to fish keeping, there's a lot that you should pay attention to. You'd be surprised how many, I go into houses all week long. I go into people's houses to fix furniture. That's what I do to pay the bills. And I see a lot of aquariums. And I see a lot of aquariums sitting on rickety stands. And rickety is a Virginia word for crappy, loose, rattly type stand. And let me tell you something, there could be no worse scenario than having something like that, because when your child, Daniel, gets where he's walking, in those very early stages, he's going to be using furniture to pull himself up. If you have a rickety aquarium stand, I know it sounds like common sense, but can you just imagine what would happen with that kid pulls the thing up? Come on. I'm of the belief that anyone who is willing to come on to a YouTube live stream about fish keeping, particularly a topic like quarantining, is enough of a fish nerd to where there's no way in the world they would have their tank on a rickety stand. But I just had to put that out there. But then the next thing is, we can all be a little lax when it comes to where we store our chemicals and our medications and aquarium salts and things like that. All of that needs to be up. That, again, common sense. And even fish food. I don't think fish food's going to kill your kid, but my God, will that kid make a mess with that fish food. So keeping everything up, and I would not, if I had a young child. My youngest is 12. He's going to be 13 next week. So it's not an issue in my house. But I wouldn't have a tank at this height if I had an infant in the house. Just because, they would be going up there and putting their hands in it. And unless you have some kind of crazy catfish or gar or piranhas or something stupid in the tank, it's not like the kid's going to get hurt by the fish, but could get hurt by the water, drinking the water. You never know. So child proofing for aquariums, it's totally common sense. This tank right here, I didn't ask for this, but this tank actually has locks on the 3 doors. That's pretty cool. I could put whatever I want down there and I wouldn't have to worry about it with a small child. But anyway, there you go. Just make sure the damn thing isn't going to fall down on the kid. I think that's probably the biggest scenario, the biggest nightmare scenario that could happen with a small child. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Corey, or not.
No, I think that's reasonable. I tell people, strap it in. Treat it like it's got to go through an earthquake, because kids are going to climb on it. They're going to bump into it. You're raising a kid. At some point, they're falling against that aquarium. They're going to have friends over. There's going to be a sleepover. Crazy stuff's going to happen. You got to future-proof it. If you just had a baby, you got at least 15 years of that aquarium maybe hitting the floor. So good stand, strap it in, lock the doors down. When your kid hits 2, 3, that age where it wants to see the aquarium, and it's going to start pulling chairs over to get up on it, maybe you put a footstool there, something safer. It's not too hard to predict what's going to happen, especially when it does it once. If the kid goes and pulls a chair and crawls up on it, it's going to happen again. That's not a one-time thing. So move that chair, put the correct thing there. You also don't want the kid to get a chair that can, the back moves. like the chair I'm in right now. You don't want to crawl up on that and then like slap into the tank and just bust it. So, you know, a little bit of prevention go a long way, and know that bright, shiny fish and light, who doesn't want to look at that? Give them a way to look at it. Maybe it's the side of the couch, whatever it is, but, you know, be smart and try to, you know, find the problems before they happen.
Agreed. Absolutely. This is, you know, I have to do a bit of kind of self-promo here. Renee Morris, I'm assuming it's Renee, is there any photo links or something your followers can post pics of their tanks? Yes, there is. It's called the Tank Talk Facebook group. Go to Facebook and just type in Tank Talk. There's over 7,000 members now. It's growing like ridiculously fast, like 100 members a day. So you can post all the pictures of your tanks that you want, and all the good people in Tank Talk will say all kinds of good things about your tank too. It's not one of those where you'll just immediately get ridiculed if you have a fish in there that shouldn't be in your tank or whatever. There might be people that give you friendly advice, but yeah, that's the best place to do it. That's the only place really to do it. Then Paul Martin, when Paul Martin asks a question, I answer it, Corey, because that guy, I mean, come on. But it's a question that I have no experience with, but I think you might. What are your thoughts on preset aquarium heaters? Good, bad, inconsistencies? My only experience with preset heaters is the little tiny ones that go in like 10-gallon tanks or whatever. I don't have any experience with any larger, or if there even is any. But I didn't know if you did. Maybe it was something you could touch on.
Well, I always got to take it to the technical standpoint, right? So in a vacuum, those preset heaters are just fine, right? What you don't want is you don't want the ones that are just straight up voltage. So like for a betta tank or something like that, it'll say this is a 10-watt heater, this is a 15-watt heater, and they don't have any thermostat in them. And so it's 10 watts of energy, and maybe in the winter it keeps it at 72, but then in the summer when the room temp is 82, it's keeping it at 86. So you don't want that kind. That kind is bad. But if it is one that does have a thermostat, and let's say, you know, I'm just going to pick a brand like Tetra. They come in the kits a lot of times. Those like little silvery ones with the rubber ends that aren't adjustable at all. Out of the box, yeah, in theory, they're going to be calibrated and they're going to work. The problem with a bimetallic heater, and that's what most heaters are, is basically what happens is you produce heat. And as heat happens, it's going to bend the metal a little bit. And when the contact points touch, it turns off. When the metal cools down, it goes, oh man, it's not touching anymore. We should turn back on. And that's going to happen like a billion times, right? Well, eventually, when you heat up metal and cool it down a bunch of times, it starts to warp. And so that's how we actually get heaters that stick on forever. The metal is warped so much that no matter what, this bottom piece will never, or I guess it would never, you know, come apart again. I don't know if it's open or closed when it's on, but it basically becomes where it can never touch each other again, or it's always touching, and that forever is on. It's going to cook your fish. So in a normal heating scenario where we have a heater that you can adjust, when you adjust that adjustment screw, it's basically going to change the contact points. And so let's say today your heater is 72 degrees and it's 72. But a year from today, you've got it set to 72 and it's actually 73 degrees. We could adjust it a little bit, and Eheim heaters actually have all those adjustments, and super duper confusing, and I hate them because it's a phone call every time I ever sold one. But when it comes back to preset aquarium heaters, they're probably okay for a limited time, but really you want to get yourself one that's adjustable long term. And I don't think I can say any brand is better or worse when it comes to heaters, just because the way they're designed, they all pretty much operate very similarly. And you know, a lot of people go, well, man, these ones never stay true. Almost no heater ever stays super duper true unless you start going to true electronic thermostats, and that's like the cobalt heater. And you're going to go, well, yeah, that's a $90 heater. Well, it's electronics, not bimetallic anymore, and stuff like that. So, and there's some other heater controllers and stuff like that. But I would say in general, if you got it for free, use it for a while, upgrade when you can. And it's a calculated risk thing again, right? If it's just a betta in a 10-gallon tank, maybe it's great for 5-10 years. If it's heating your super duper rare wild-caught Corridoras you just got in from the Amazon, I'd go ahead and use like a $50 heater.
Yeah, before I add one more little thing about that, y'all start, if you want to ask some questions, start putting them in now, because I'm seeing a lot of talking back and forth, which is fine. But I'm not seeing a lot of questions coming through. Got a kind of a low turnout tonight, Corey. I'm disappointed in you. I thought you brought a bigger crowd in here. Jeez.
Oh, was I supposed to bring the pain? I didn't even summon the war drum. Like I didn't start beating it or anything. So I'll put up the bat signal.
I'm just teasing. Well, you can do that still. But the last thing I wanted to say about preset heaters, I mean, like I said, I don't have any experience with them, but my instincts tell me that, you kind of touched on this. My experience with heaters is when they start to go, the temperature will go down. So if you have a preset heater that's set to 80 degrees and it starts to go, maybe it has another year worth of life left, but it starts to go and it starts to just kind of creep down a little bit. There's nothing you can do about that. Whereas if your adjustable heater starts to do that, you can turn it up. I've had to do that before. I've had to have heaters that are on the appropriate size tank set to 87 degrees to get 82 out of them. I've had to do that before. I think anybody that's been keeping fish for any length of time has had to do that. You know that when that happens, it's time to start saving up money to get a new heater. But I'm just saying you can get through with that for a while, whereas when you have the preset ones, you can't do that. So that would be the only thing. I don't know that I would get one if it were me. Maybe for a really small tank, but for a large tank, no, I don't think I would do that. So okay. Let's see. Okay, a bunch of questions came through. So let me find one real quick that you can start to talk about Oscars. I talk about Oscars too much. I took an intake sponge and put. Okay, that's answering somebody else's question. Okay, Corey, take this. What fish can live with goldfish?
So the broad rule is anything that doesn't fit in their mouth and won't beat them up. And so once you put that aside, then I can actually think of some fish. So a dojo loach, sometimes very large snails, sometimes bristlenose plecostomus, sometimes things like haplo catfish, and some of the very big corridors. And they're not actually corridors, they're brocus, like Brocus multiradiatus, which is a catfish that looks exactly like a corridor, but it gets big enough and is completely docile that they can't swallow it. Some people have good luck with reticulated hillstream loaches. What tends to not do well is other subtropical species like danios, white clouds. Eventually, it's you fit in my mouth, you're going to go there. You didn't fear me enough today, so I ate you. If they run forever, but eventually 6 months down the road, they're like, that guy's not eating me, and then pretty soon he eats them. Because that's just what goldfish do. They put everything in their mouth, whether it's a snail, a rock, a piece of plant, and so it's an inevitable thing. So make sure it's not going to beat up on the goldfish. Make sure it can handle the temperatures the goldfish want, and make sure it doesn't fit in its mouth.
Very good. This one is for you, and I think, I could be wrong, but I think that this question was asked to me on my I know it was asked to me on my live stream on Facebook on Tuesday, which I do every Tuesday on the Tank Talk group. It might have been a different person, I don't know, but if it is the same person, she wants your opinion this time, which is fine. I don't mind sitting back and letting you answer all the questions. I want to switch from a hang on the back to sponge filter. I was wondering, how long do you think it will take to seed with bacteria roughly? That's from Jessica Day.
Yeah, so it's really hard to know how long bacteria is going to seed because it seeds evenly in an aquarium. So if your hang on back has 50% and your gravel has 30% and your glass has 20%, if we add another filter, we're just going to take a little bit of bacteria from all those and it's going to seed there. It sounds like you're not in a crunch for time. So I usually tell people, like, give it like 2 weeks and then undo the hang on back filter and see how it goes. Keep an eye on it, obviously. The scientific papers know that in an aquarium, in optimal conditions, we can double the amount of bacteria we have every 16 hours, roughly. That being said, we'd have to have enough food, so we might have to increase the amount of food we have. We'd have to also make it colonize where we want it, because just because we double the amount of bacteria doesn't mean it actually went on your sponge filter. It could be in your gravel and stuff like that, but I would tell you, give it like 2 weeks and take it easy. When you do switch, lighten the feeding a little bit, keep a good eye on it, but it might only take 3 days. but it doesn't sound like you're in a rush. So give yourself 2 weeks. You've probably been going for 5 years to hang on back. What's 2 more weeks? So.
Yeah, I went a little further than that. When I answered that question, again, I don't know if it was the same person. I said, stick the sponge filters in the tank, put them in there, and put the air into them full blast, and forget that they're there. Just leave them there for a while, a good long while. I mean, if you're making this switch, I don't think that you're doing it in a hurry, like you said. I mean, I don't know why you would be doing it in a hurry. So take your time with it. Just let it sit in there. The longer that it can sit in there, the better your chances are that it's going to do exactly what you want it to do. So that was my answer to it. But
I think both are right. I mean, it's always. I don't think either one's right answer because it completely depends on stocking levels and type of aquarium and stuff like that. So, I think the important part is be cautious. And I said be cautious. You're being cautious this straight up time. So be cautious, monitor it. You'll be okay.
Absolutely. So, Brian, I'm Sherman. I'm going to say Sherman. I'm probably saying it wrong, but what do you want from me? So I'm reading 5 parts per million ammonia on a new tank. Should I be changing water or let it do its thing? I'll take that briefly first because I like listening to you. A lot of that's going to depend on whether you have fish in the tank or not. If you have fish in the tank, then I would be changing water only. I wouldn't be messing with anything else. I would just be changing water. If you do not have fish in the tank, leave it alone. Let the tank do what it's going to do. But if you have fish, you need to save your fish because once it starts to go up, it's not, it's going to do nothing but kill your fish. So save your fish by cycling through some water. I shouldn't have used the word cycling because that just confuses everybody, but get some water out, put some clean water in. The ammonia will climb up again very fast. So just be aware. And then, of course, use things like Prime water conditioners that are also ammonia detoxifiers. Doesn't get rid of the ammonia, just detoxifies it. That should help get through it. So it's yours now, Corey.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly what I was going to say. If there's no fish, leave it. Let that bacteria process its way through it. That's what you want to do. That's the perfect scenario. If there is fish, I always tell people we got to go with the lesser of two evils here. So we got 5 parts per million. Ammonia, that's pretty harmful to the fish's gills and things like that. We need to start changing that out. And I personally, if I know I've got 5 parts per million and I want to be always at 0.5 or less. So if I'm cycling a tank 0.5, get it to there and then let the tank cycle through that. Once it's cycled through that and it's cycled through the nitrite, then you can start feeding those fish a little bit again. But if never let it get past 0.5 parts per million. And if you're feeding those guys, you might change water every day, but fish don't have to eat every day. But I think more than 0.5 parts per million ammonia is going to do more harm than the frequent water changes, because frequent water changes do some stress too. So I think if it's only ammonia, let it be. If you got fish, well, you got to do something about it.
China doll. What a cool name. China doll. Orange blossom, cichlid. I'm assuming they're talking OB. I call them orange blotch. I don't know what you call them, but who cares? Orange blossom cichlid gave birth early, just bought tumbler last night. Will it survive till it comes in? No, but it also depends on what your definition of gave birth is. If the female, if we're talking about an orange blotch, a peacock, which that's the only one I know, orange blossom. Some people call them orange blossom. Some people say orange blotch. We're talking about a mouth brooder that would have had the eggs in her mouth and spit them out. If she spit the eggs out onto the substrate, those eggs are going to die. I mean, it's just going to happen. They're not going to survive for a couple of days until you get your egg tumbler. I don't mean to be blunt, but that's just the way I am. What I would do in that particular situation, if you have a good fertile female that's ready to go, she's going to spawn again very fast. You'll be surprised. I would just go ahead and let your egg tumbler come in and have it ready for next time. in case that happens. Because the thing is, if the eggs aren't moving constantly, they're going to rot. That's just what happens. So, you know, if she spit the eggs onto the substrate, surprises me that nobody's eaten them yet. But the other thing is, you say she gave birth. Did she spit out free swimming fry? If that's the case, run out to PetSmart real quick. I don't have one on me. They're right over there. Get you one of those little net breeder box type things and put your fry in there until you don't need a tumbler. If that's the case, they're free swimming fry. You just need to isolate them until they get big enough to where they're eating on their own and swimming on their own and not going to get eaten by the other fish. So I don't know if you want to add anything to that or not.
I've got, I can make a ghetto incubator in a pinch. Like, it all depends on how much you want to save these guys, but I've done it before and probably seen it in some of my previous videos where I was showing how to kind of strip fry out of a female. I never run tumblers because I always do it in a net. So I get a big aquarium net that I already have, and I kind of bend the handle around the lip of the tank, and then so being that you're buying a tumbler, you already have to have an air pump because that's how they run. They run on an air pump. But you just get an air stone going very mildly underneath that net, and it will move the eggs enough that it'll probably keep it alive for you. Now, being that you've never done this before, it's going to be hard to set that up, and you could lose the first one. That first batch, that could be bad, but it gives you a better chance of not having anything. So, I would try that if you got it laying around. If you don't, they'll make more. Don't worry. You're going to get, if you pull fry or eggs out of that female, she's going to breed like every 2 weeks till the end of time. So you'll have more than you even know what to do with.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying before. I get emails all the time. My angels spawned and they ate the fry. They're so frustrated. They're so angry because, maybe this was their first spawn and they don't realize that angels can spawn almost nonstop. So the fish spawns and they're thinking, well, that brood is gone, so now I need to wait another year or 9 months. No. I mean, most of these fish, they're going to spawn again, and they're going to do it fast, particularly if you're talking about angels. I could put a long list together of fish that will just constantly breed. I've seen angel breeder tanks with free swimming fry and eggs at the same time in the tank. So it's bananas. I mean, they'll just keep on going. This one's for you, Corey, because you're the goldfish guy. I have Rob D. Maybe it's Rob Dyke. You ever heard of Rob Dyke? I love that guy. You haven't heard of Rob Dyke? You should check out his channel. He's got like 4 million subscribers. He's good. But anyway, this is not him. I have 26 fry of Ryukin, I think that's right, goldfish. They are only 2 weeks old. What else should I feed them besides baby brine shrimp?
So I'm going to assume you're feeding live baby brine. It's going to be rough unless you already have something going. If you had live Daphnia cultures, maybe microworms, vinegar eels, well, microworms are probably too big at this point, but vinegar eels and some Daphnia probably could work. You could try transitioning them onto some frozen baby brine and maybe frozen cyclops and things like that. You could order up. So like, I'm assuming you're just like, okay, I'm hatching brine. It's a lot of work. You could try ordering up something called APR, which is an artificial rotifer protein. It's used for raising rainbow fish eggs. If you have green water, like in a pond, you could put that into the tank. That'd be a little bit of food. You can get some, like Hikari First Bites. You could use a little bit of that. You could use egg yolk, where you take a piece of cheesecloth, you hard boil an egg, you take the yolk, and you press it through it, and the stuff going through the cheesecloth is fine enough. It's really going to cloud that water up. But that's kind of the name of the game when you're raising goldfish, is tons of water changes and lots of food and lots of work. And that's why a lot of people don't raise goldfish, because it's a ton of work. That being said, could be very rewarding. I find a lot of people do love those goldfish once they've raised them up, because you've put in, it's like raising a kid. You've put in so much work, and then you get to enjoy it for a very long time afterwards. So those are the tips I have. I can't think of anything else that's like super duper easy, but the fact you got live brine shrimp going, you're already doing better than most.
Aquarium Co-op and KGTropicals. I have watched hundreds of all your videos, and I like all the info you offer up to new guys. thumbs up to you both. I just wanted to read that just to make myself feel better. I just had to do that.
You got to, because it's what keeps you going. You know that people like it, and even though you know people are enjoying it, it's always good to hear it. So,
Oh, it definitely is. I mean, I've been doing this 5 years now, and it still doesn't get old. I mean, it's a beautiful thing. Now, I want to talk about something here for a second while we maybe let a couple other questions come in. Put it out there to the audience that's watching right now. You and I spoke about this in the beginning of today's conversation before we went live. I'm wondering if Thursday nights are the optimal time to be doing these live streams. And then I want to talk, Corey, a little bit about what you and I talked about last week or earlier this week, because I'm really excited about that. So, whether we get back to questions or not, I don't know. Depends on if good ones come in. But what do the viewers, there's 198 people in here right now. What do you think about Thursday nights? I don't care how many viewers there are, because I'm realistic. I'm not going to get Philip DeFranco type numbers. I watched one of his live streams one time. I got a notification on my phone. Philip DeFranco is live. I clicked on it, and by the time I clicked on it, he had 5,500 people watching. I mean, I don't expect to get those kind of numbers. Come on, this video isn't going to get 5,500 views. But is there a better night to do these live streams? I'm not going to do Sunday nights because that's Corey's night, and Corey's my friend, and I wouldn't do that to him. Is there a better night that you can mention in the chat that you think would be more convenient for everybody, and maybe get a little bit better turnout? I had a great turnout when I was giving away a $350 filter, but when I'm just talking or whatever, it's not as much of a turnout. But I mean, most people watch it on replay anyway, but just putting that out there. But I also want to talk about, do you want to talk about what we talked about earlier? I mean,
sure, I talk about anything. I got nothing to hide.
All right. So I'm going to do it. And we've been going for an hour. So who knows who's going to make it this long? It might just be the 197 people that are watching right now. Corey and I were talking about doing another weekly show that would be on top of mine and on top of his. He's not, taking his down and switching it, and neither am I. I'm still going to do my independent live stream, and he's still going to do his. Well, we were talking about doing another show where we get more than just me and him every week, but also bring in a couple of other people. They don't even have to be YouTubers. But a couple other people to be with us every single week. I haven't stopped thinking about it since, Corey. I don't know about you. I mean, I think it would be a lot of fun. What I want to do, what I think would be a lot of fun with this, is to have every aspect of the hobby covered. Meaning, we get a saltwater guy. We have me. I'm kind of a cichlids, I'm kind of got my hands in a lot of different pots.
We bring you on for the looks. Let's be real here.
Well, yeah. I mean, I bring the flavor to it. How about that? Corey is going to be kind of everything, but, more specifically plants. I mean, we could say Corey's the plant and goldfish guy. I don't know. I mean, you're so well-versed in so many different things, but it's almost like I'm the flavor. Corey is the encyclopedia. We bring in somebody that is a saltwater guy, and then maybe I would love to have a pond guy on here. In fact, I've reached out to one. We'll see what happens there. But what does everybody think of that idea? There's going to be certain names that are going to pop up. It's just guaranteed. You should have this person. You should have that person. We already know who those names are, so those don't necessarily need to be brought up. But I'm not necessarily looking for people to suggest other people to be on this show with us. I'm just wanting to see what people's thoughts are on that. And then also, if you are a YouTuber, neither Corey and I are caught up on subscriber count and views, and you have to be a certain, neither one of us care about that kind of thing. There is a lot of channels out there that have under 1,000 subscribers that are giving a lot of great information to this hobby. I know that there's channels out there that it's a shame that they have 700 subscribers. You know what I mean? They should have a lot more than that. So if you are somebody that is one of these people that we're talking about, you represent an aspect of the hobby that neither Corey or I are a part of, and you want to be a part of this thing, then email me. Or you can email Corey, whoever you like better. We'll see who gets more emails. But KGTropicals@gmail.com would be the easiest. I mean, it's going to be on my channel, so email me. Don't bother Corey with it. But email me, let me know. But also, please understand, if you don't get a response, don't be offended. It's going to be one of those things where if we get somebody that says, hey, I'd love to be a part of that, we're going to check the channel out. And if neither Corey or I are feeling it, then we'll move on. But
yeah, I think the other thing I want to strive for is, too, we have no idea what day or anything yet, so scheduling is one of the hardest things. Like, you could have the best idea in the world, like, oh, this person's going to be great. He'll work great with both of us. Like, oh, you work that night? Oh, that's not going to work. The other thing we want to check out, we'll get you in a Google Hangout like this. Make sure your webcam works, your connection's okay, because it doesn't do us any good if you're the best person ever, but every time we go, hey, blah, 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 what's your opinion? And it just cuts to crackly, jarbled noise. That's not going to do it either. So, realize we got to test all those things out. We want to try and put on a good show with lots of people, and there'll be guest stars, and there'll be the regulars, and you don't even have to have a YouTube channel. Maybe you're just a guy that doesn't do anything on YouTube, but a certain like, let's say we want to do a Lake Tanganyika show, or we want to do Madagascar cichlids, and you're like a guy that knows all about Madagascar cichlids, and you have a decent webcam or decent internet connection. That makes sense. Who knows where we'll go from here. That's the biggest thing, is I don't want to frame it into, here's what we're going to do. I just want to say, like, here's what we're thinking about. We'll see where it evolves. Like, I have no idea yet, and I don't think John does. So that's why we're asking for opinions and stuff like that. So that if you think you're a person like, hey, I'm a guy that's not going to swear the whole time, I'm not going to be crazy, my internet connection works okay, stuff like that, and you think most people would want to, hear your opinion, stuff like that, reach out to us. We'll see what we can do.
yeah, and there's no stipulations on, the biggest criteria that you have to meet is that you have to be reliable. I mean, I realize I'm saying that after I missed this live stream last week. I'm not even going to get into the details why that happened, but there are details as to why that happened. But you need to be somebody that is on board with this, that can, if we decide we're going to do it on whatever nights, you can be available for that night every single week. And yes, like Corey said, we will have people on that aren't regulars, a special guest type thing, but like you said, there's no, there's going to be an evolution to the show. I almost feel like I want there to be an evolution to each individual episode. I don't know that I want to go into it with this overwhelming outline of what it is. I have this idea of just 4 or 5 fish guys get together and talk. We're just having a conversation, and we talk. It's not locker room talk Donald Trump style. It's we're just talking about fish. We're talking about what's going on in our fish rooms that week, and what we learned, and what we a mistake we made or whatever. And the episode evolves on its own. I feel like something like that would be a lot of fun. It would be very organic and just a kind of a natural thing, rather than a scripted type show. I think it'd be a lot of fun. So once again, if you are that guy, or girl, yeah, it doesn't have to be all dudes. We'll have to behave ourselves a little more if there's women on it. But if you are that person that wants to be a part of it, send me an email. And if you don't hear back, don't be offended. I mean, it doesn't mean you're a jerk. It doesn't mean I don't like you. It just means that it didn't seem like it was going to work. So, all right, pond expert, shrimp expert, dwarf cichlids, large. I mean, my God, this guy wants 12 people on the show. Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely, I don't know, shrimp. Is there a draw for that? I don't know. Ponds, absolutely. And I'm not going to start putting names out of people that I've already reached out to, but it doesn't matter to us who it is, how many subscribers they have or anything like that. Makes no difference. So, but yeah, Ben Cheek, I like your ideas. That's all good. So does anyone in the chat know what to feed African dwarf froglet? I don't.
Well, I answered during the chat, and I recommended frozen bloodworms or live blackworms, which I didn't mention that in the chat. If it's actually like a froglet-like fry, you have to use like live baby brine and stuff like that, but I am assuming she means like just a smaller frog you picked up from the pet store. I don't recommend pellets. Like a lot of people get recommended frog pellets, and they dissolve into the water, and frogs are the clumsiest eaters. They pretty much find a pellet, and they've got these like hands, and they kind of do this move, and it bounces off their forehead as they try to eat it. And so, you want something to hold together, so that way now I can, mosey on over there as a frog and try again to bat it into my face. That's also how I eat tacos, by the way. So it's kind of a bloodbath. You don't want to be near me while I'm eating tacos. You could take casualties.
You talk about tacos more than I talk about Coca-Cola.
So, it's a passion of mine. You got to do what you got to do.
The only woman in the hobby I know, if I think it's meant of, is Rachel, and she is awesome. Yes, Rachel is awesome. There's quite a few other females that have channels.
I can think of a bunch, yeah.
Yeah, there's quite a few, and there's quite a few really good ones. Some of them are overseas. Psychedelic Babe, I like a lot. Miss Saltwater Tank. They're both, I don't know where they are, but they're not in the United States, so I think we might have a time zone problem there. There's a lot. Solid Gold, Jenny, you and I both know her. And I don't mean to miss any of the others, but there's a lot of females out there. Rachel is the one that's kind of blowing up right now. And Rachel's already a legend in this hobby. So, of course, everybody knows who she is. So, yeah, there's a lot more. Somebody suggested Pond Digger. Good suggestion.
Very good. Bring the controversy for sure. That would be an interesting one, just from a train wreck standpoint.
What? Who?
Pond Digger, right? Or not Pond Digger? No. Pond Guru, right?
He said Pond Digger.
Oh, I was thinking Pond Guru, because Pond Guru is like kind of out of the fish scene. He's more of a metal.
I wouldn't have even read that one. No disrespect to him, but no, it was Pond Digger. Pond Digger doesn't bring any controversy with him whatsoever. That's actually one of my absolute favorite YouTube channels. So let's see if we got any more questions in here, and then we'll kind of wrap things up tonight. I've been trying to keep things at like an hour and a half. I know you like to go all day long, but
I just have no idea what the correct length is. People should probably tell me, because some people say longer, some people go, I can't stand you for more than 10 minutes. So I never know what the right length is. I go until I stop babbling, which can, or my taco's ready, one of the two.
Yeah, tacos are always gonna, as important as all of this is, tacos, come on. They are going to take precedence over everything. Yeah, getting a lot of people talking about Pond Guru now. Look what you did, Corey.
Sorry, okay. My bad.
I have not read this, so don't know if it's a... Okay, so I have a 40-gallon with an AquaClear 70 hang on the back with 2 Blackmore Goldfish. Thinking about adding some sponge filters to it. Might eventually introduce 1 more Goldfish. Would that be a bad thing? Take it away, Mr. McElroy.
Well, yes and no. It completely depends on what's your maintenance schedule. If you're, Johnny or Sally on the spot and you're changing water 3 times a week and doing all that, add a 3rd one. You're going to love it. If you, are in the middle of your thesis on your final year of college and you couldn't be more stretched for time, make it easy on yourself. But if we're talking about physical constraints, can 3 fancy goldfish be done in a 40-gallon? Have lots of people done it? Yes. The big factor is quality of food, quality of water changes. Are we running some plants? Things like that. So could you do it? Sure. Does it make sense for you? Only you can know that. Maybe, if you're already doing 1 water change a week and it's 50%, I don't know what it is, but try doing 2 a week. And if you can do that for 4 or 6 weeks and it's no problem at all, you got no problem with that, then think about adding that 3rd one. But, make sure you find that right one, because you're adding a lot of work. You better really love that thing.
This one's for me. Finally, somebody asked a question for me. Kayla C says, John, how's the saltwater tank going? Good. It's going good. I mentioned this in my live stream. I had forgotten that shrimp molt like snakes. And I came down here the other day, and there's my pistol shrimp's pistol claw laying in the middle of the sand. And I'm like, oh, God, oh, no. And then I see him crawling underneath the rocks. I'm like, oh, that's just the little skin. So, but the tank is going very good. I'm actually looking at my goby right now. I think I talked about it in my live stream. I got the pistol shrimp Watchman goby combo, and I'm just absolutely fascinated with them. The goby and I have become very good friends. I'm just not allowed to move around him, because if I move, then he darts back into the sand. But the shrimp I hardly ever see, but the shrimp has all underneath the rocks completely dug out, and it's really cool. It's really cool looking. I'm fascinated by these. I'm getting ready. Been talking with Than from Tidal Gardens about putting together my first coral order. I think I'm ready for some easy ones. I said this in my live stream on Tuesday. I'm going to go with Xenia. And I do this. I don't know if you're familiar with Xenia, Corey, but I do this because it's just the most mesmerizing coral that I've ever seen in my life. And somebody I said that to in a saltwater fish store, and he was like, "Oh, you don't want to get those. They're going to take over the tank, and you're going to have so many of them." And I'm like, "Why is that a problem?" I mean,
Everyone's got preferences. That's like me telling someone, like, you don't want to get guppies. You're going to have 1 million of them. And it's like, that's exactly what I want. And so everyone tries to always instill their preference on someone else. And especially pet store workers like myself, I try not to talk down to people like, for all you know, that guy, like, well, if you're not doing stony corals, you're not even keeping coral. It's everyone's in their own thing. Zinnias are awesome, mushrooms. Heck, I enjoy a good Kenya tree. Who doesn't?
Yeah, I mean, if you like something and it spreads throughout the tank, so what? I mean, if I had a tank, if my little 13-gallon tank, which is right here on my desk, was full of Xenia and they were all pulsing, I think that would be the coolest thing in the world. So, and the good thing is that they're not that expensive, and they grow fast and they spread fast. So I'm definitely going to go with a couple of those, and I think I'm going to go with some zoanthids. I mean, you got to have zoanthids. That's kind of a no-brainer. And then maybe a couple of mushrooms. I'm going to start off with some easy stuff, to kind of get my feet wet, get my arms wet. But it's the Xenias that I'm the most excited about.
I've got a clever idea. You can use it or totally shoot it down. But for a long time, I've wanted to have a tank where YouTube, like people that watch my videos, send me stuff for it. What if you got like your saltwater guys to frag off like tiny little corals and send it to you? You don't have a quarantine tank, so that could be a little sketchy, but what if it was like a collection of corals sent to you? Because you'd get some crazy rare stuff, you'd get stuff that's easy. Like the only thing I could think of for my goldfish tank is like, send me your crazy bad ornaments or something, but you could get rad corals because, it doesn't really work. I guess I could do that for like a planet tank or something, but corals seem so much cooler to me.
I mean, I would be wide open to something like that. I mean, I would absolutely do that. I don't know a lot of people in the saltwater world, though. That's the problem. I mean, I know George from Coralfish 12-gallon, and I know CJ. CJ's blowing up, too. Everybody loves CJ. Those are the only two that I know that I could message right now, and they would message me back. I was surprised the other day. I got, and I didn't even know that this existed. I got a YouTube message from a reef channel, and he nominated me or tagged me in this reefer tuber tag challenge thing, which I just thought was so cool because I don't think anybody in the saltwater world likes me. So the fact that he sent that over to me, I thought that was really cool. I don't know if I'm going to do the video because you have to answer 10 questions about the hobby, the saltwater hobby, and I'm so new to it, I don't know that I could do all that well with the questions. But then again, it might be good to give it, answer the questions from the beginner standpoint.
Yeah, that's no one else is going to offer that. Like everyone else is going to be a hardcore reef guy, and you can be the from my 1 year in the hobby, here's what I've got to say.
Absolutely. Now, next thing, Paul Martin again. Got to answer Paul Martin's questions. I can't find it now. It was a while ago, but he asked if we can expect Aquarium Co-op and KGTropicals at any conventions next year. And I'm going to answer to that. I don't have any tickets, but I would love to go to one, or two, or four. I had a lot of fun at the Aquatic Experience last year. Missed it this year. That's a long drive for me to Chicago. But I would definitely like to do a couple of them this year. I'd like to do a saltwater one and a couple of freshwater. My thing is, and Corey, maybe you can help me with this. This is a good topic. I don't even know how to find out where these things are. I don't think I want to go to one where it's one little room and 4 or 5 guys. I want to go to some of the bigger ones. Right. Not that I'm some kind of diva, but I know they're not all the Aquatic Experience. But I want to go to ones that are, you can go and spend a good 2 days. You want to spend
$1,500 to $2,000 to show up to a Denny's banquet room for 4 hours.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
That's that risk versus reward we talk about and everything. So, and I actually had someone message me and ask me where they could find the bigger conventions, and I swear it used to exist. Like Aquabid used to have a calendar, but I don't know if they have that anymore. I think you can find them in the back of Amazona's magazines and maybe like Tropical Fish Hobbyists and stuff, but it did kind of put something in my brain of like, maybe I should get that onto my website. But I feel like everyone becomes the guy that's like, oh, well, I'm going to hold the list. And then they do it for like 6-8 months, and then they drop the list, and then everyone's going, where do I go again? I can tell you the ones that I know about that I plan on going to. I'm going to go to Colorado for the Aquatic Gardener Association, mostly. So, yeah, I'm a plant nerd, but I get to go see Greg Sage's Fisher. He's a library guy. I'm super stoked about that. And then like 2 weeks later, so that's in April, and then I think it's like May 1st or something like that weekend. Then it's the library convention, and I believe it's in St. Louis again. So I get to go see Gary Lang's fish room with rainbow fish and stuff. And I've been to St. Louis once, and it was a good time. I would go back, and a lot of times, once you go to conventions, like I think I've got a business card in my wallet. This is because Ted Judy handed it to me. And so Cataclysm 2017 is happening in Madison, Wisconsin, September 24th to the 22nd to the 24th. And you go to Catfish, so http://catfish-cataclysm.com, and you can find out more info. That's the first time they're ever doing that. So I have no idea. That could be, the Denny's banquet room. I kind of doubt it because they've already got big people showing up. But, so they were like, hey, are you signing up today? And I'm like, man, that's a year from now? I have no idea what I'm doing in September. So in theory, yes, I really want to go because I do love corridors. I love catfish. But at the same time, I got to be within like 4 or 5 months to really start plopping down plane ticket money and stuff like that. For all I know, I don't know what I'm doing yet. I could be locked into my own store going, I can't get out. So,
what about the ACA? When is the ACA?
I don't know. I've never been to one. So I know of other big conventions. So the ACA is definitely one. The NEC, which is the Northeast Council, isn't there like Ohio? I think does the big. What's the one that Rachel O'Leary is always a big part of? Like the big fish deal, big cichlid deal. I think that one might be on Joey's like calendar thing. Yeah, there's a few other ones too. And some of them. So like the AGA is every other year, and same with the Catfish Convention. So not this Cataclysm one, but the one that CatCon, I think it's called. That one's done every 2 years, and I think so. Killifish is happening too because I saw that at the convention. Where was it though? I don't remember where it was, but I think that happens every other year, something like that. So there's lots of stuff. It's all whether it makes sense for you to travel there, and are you into that fish? Like, are you going to spend $1,500 with all the hotel rooms and fees and stuff to go see killifish when you've only ever kept one in your life? Probably not.
I was so disappointed because I looked up ACA 2017, and I found it, and I'm looking through it, and I'm like, man, it's in March, and it's in San Francisco. Ain't no way. But it's the American Counseling Association. So, wrong website.
That would be awkward. You show up and, Oh, that's what we're doing, huh?
I would be so upset if I went to that one. Somebody help me out here. When is the ACA next year? I mean, I can type it in, but
Yeah, you're the cichlid guy. You're supposed to know, or at least someone in the chat. Usually someone's always got my back in the chat going, oh, it's here. I've already got tickets. So Ben Cheek says the Ohio Cichlid Extravaganza. That's another big one. So it looks like it's in Michigan, July 13th to the 17th of 2017 for ACA.
okay. That's it's not as bad. Yeah, there it is. Novi, Michigan.
See,
Is
a
it
lot
Novi
of
or
you
Novi?
guys, I don't know. A lot of you guys have a way advantage. Like, so I always have to fly. It's never in the realm of I could drive there. So whenever I hear you guys going, oh, I'd have to drive 6 hours, I'm thinking, I don't even have that option. I have to fly every time. So I'm always super jealous when you're going, oh, it's not so bad. It's only a 6 hour or 4 hour drive. Like, I don't even have that option. Because when you have that option, if you go to an event like that and you drive your van, you get to load stuff up and drive it back home. Because at the end of the show, all the vendors that ship stuff in don't want to ship it back. Too expensive to ship it back. So you can come with some great deals.
Tell you a little story. When I went to the aquatic experience last year, I woke up early Sunday morning and left. I went and had breakfast with Rick Biro and his wife, and then I left. I left at about 8:30 in the morning, and it was actually earlier than I expected. But Sean Peck was snoring so loud, he woke me up, and I got out. But I left at 8:30, and I was expecting to be home late. I mean, I knew I was going to be driving all day long. Well, I was using an older tablet as my navigation, and I was having a problem with this tablet freezing every once in a while, and it froze at one particular point, and I went an hour and a half out of my way because I'm listening to a book on tape or whatever. What's that? Audible. I was listening to an Audible book, and I was just driving, and turned out so 3 hours out of my way total, an hour and a half out, an hour and a half back. I was pretty upset about that. So yeah, I don't think I'm going to be doing another 15 and a half hour drive unless I can split it up in a couple of days. I don't know. That's
15 and a half hours. I got props for that. That's some serious driving. There's no doubt about that. I mean, I've done a cross-country trip with Greg Sage once, and it's fun. And I almost want to do that. I want to start driving to some of these places just so that I can hit the hotel rooms / fish rooms and fish stores along the way. That's an adventure in itself.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, I left on Thursday, and I did about 13 hours the first day, and I stayed somewhere in Indiana, I think, at a hotel, and then I drove another hour and a half, 2 hours or whatever. I don't know if it was Indiana. I don't know where I stayed, but so the morning of the show, I drove a couple hours, but I still got there before the doors opened. That wasn't all that bad. I mean, I drive 300 or 400 miles for my job, so it wasn't all that bad. But the drive home, I did it straight through, and I went 3 hours out of my way. That was terrible. So hopefully there's one near me. I mean, Michigan, I've driven to Michigan before. I drove to Grand Rapids, and it's like 10 and a half hours. I can do that, but I don't know. I mean, and flying is always an option too. I don't know. We'll have to see. I mean, flying is usually, as long as the convention center is right next to the airport, am I going to have to take a cab? Am I going to have to rent a car? Sometimes it's worth just driving. I don't know. So the answer to the question, Paul, I would love to go to a show or two next year. I just don't know when they are, and I don't know if I'm free those days, but I'd love to. And it'd be really cool if there was something like halfway where we could meet up, Corey. That'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I totally, if we ever do something together, and I totally screwed up like my time management at Chicago, but I really want to have a get-together dinner somewhere, like just anyone that wants to show up could show up and, do dinner somewhere. But I mismanaged my time, and I ended up driving 3.5 hours to a fish room tour and back. And I'll say this. We left the aquatic experience when they were going over the loudspeaker going, all right, get out, basically, is what they were doing. Like, it's closed, only vendors. And so we left, that was 6 o'clock. we didn't get back to the hotel room till like 7 o'clock in the morning, and we did a lot of driving to film a fish room. So, in theory, we got drive-through. We just grabbed food and kept driving. So I wanted to do a kind of a dinner thing with people, but I mismanaged the time. I fully apologize to everyone, and next time I'll make it more of a thing. I just I kind of showed up honestly, just going, well, I wouldn't be surprised if I didn't see a single person that knows me here, and I don't want to like put on the big show and then just be eating dinner alone, crying into my soup or tacos. So
yeah, Sean Peck and I went out for one night when I was there in Chicago. We went out and got Chicago-style pizza, which was awesome. That was a lot of fun. But, I mean, there was only one night that was available for that. It is fun. I mean, especially with the situation like with you and with Peck Tech and Joey and Rachel and all of these other people, Dustin, they were all there last year. It's like that might be the only time I ever am with them in person. So it is cool to be able to go out and do those kind of things. I'm not much of a go out person, but we did the banquet with all of them, which was kind of a joke. But anyway, but yeah, I mean, you and I, we've known each other for a while now, and we may never see each other in person. So it would be cool to meet up at something like that. And, who knows when it's going to be or where it's going to be. You're not going to get me to a live bear convention, just like I'm not going to get you to a saltwater one. So it's going to have to be something similar to the aquatic experience. And, maybe we can meet up at something like that. Who knows? That'd be fun.
All right. People are laughing, be crying over tacos. Yeah, nothing. Spilt milk? No way. It's crying over tacos. It's a sad sight. Let me tell you. You ever see a fat man crying over tacos? Just know something's not right in the world.
Well, I think that on that note, it's probably time to start wrapping things up. Because, I mean, yeah, we can talk about tacos. On the topic of tacos, did you know that Taco Bell still has the double-decker taco? I am such a huge fan of that one, and I got a couple of them last week, and boy, were they good. I don't know if they have them out there on the West Coast, but
we do
they have them here.
But I think you just qualified yourself, because the fact that you didn't know they have them, you can't be that big of a connoisseur of the double-decker taco, because you would have been like the go-to point. You've been like, oh yeah, it went away for 2.8 months, but they brought it back. You'd be the number one lead on source of double-deckers. But see, double-deckers, we're getting into taco like quirks. Once you put that soft shell around that taco, I've got this weird thing where it's got to be a crunchy taco. Crunchy shell is taco, soft shell burrito. So I'm not really sure. A double-decker kind of gets into like, is this a burrito or is this a taco? Because for sure, you put some Fritos inside of a tortilla and you wrap it up and they call that whatever, they're like Frito burrito. But how is crinkly little chips different than a taco shell? So I think the double-decker, if you look down in the actual DNA under a microscope of that double-decker, it's actually a burrito.
Well, I'm just not a taco diva like you are. I mean, geez, it's good, and I'm satisfied after I have it, then that's fine.
The funniest part, in Chicago, people are always shocked to see me eating stuff that wasn't tacos. Like, they just assume I only eat tacos, but don't get me wrong. I like a lot of different foods, and yes, I do eat tacos, but, yeah, I ate eggs one breakfast. Like, shocking, right? Like, they didn't have tacos. I would have eaten tacos, but, I can eat a lot of food. I do like tacos. The reality is once to twice a week, probably. That's a reality. If it's more than that, my week's going really good.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's pizza. I'm the nutcase for pizza. I love tacos too. I do. Trust me. And let me tell you something. If you ever come to King George, you can come over to the house, and I'll cook you some tacos that'll absolutely blow your mind. They will. I'm telling you, they will. And I'm not giving you the recipe either. You got to come here and have them. Change your life. I'm telling you. But for me, it's pizza. I mean, I'm the kind of guy. I don't care if it's out of the microwave or if it's Pizza Hut or I got one of my kids works at Domino's. I don't care. Pizza, I'm in. I could eat pizza 7 nights a week and lunch.
My mantra is I can eat tacos like I keep fish, and you see how many fish tanks I keep. So, yeah.
Yeah, but this is where the numbers start to really go down. People are they really talking about food? But anyway, this has been fun. I like the kind of relaxed kind of an approach, which is why I think that if we were to do what we were talking about before with the getting a group of people together for a weekly show, I think that would be awesome. I think we could have a lot of fun with that. And just be kind of casual, laid back, not talking about tacos and pizza, but just talking about fish keeping. And, I think it'd be fun. I've seen other niches do it, more particularly the vaping niche or the vaping world on YouTube. There's a couple of shows like that where there's multiple YouTubers that get together once a week and they just BS for a couple hours. And it seems like it's a lot of fun. I think that if we were to do something like that, it would be something that, people come and watch and it's like we're just hanging out. I think that'd be it's something worth looking into. I definitely want to do it. Once again, if anybody else is still watching, if you're still interested, if you are someone that is interested in doing something like that with Corey and I, we're the only two that are locked in so far. Send me an email, KGTropicals@gmail.com. I got to say it. If you don't hear back from me, please don't be upset. It's just because you just didn't hear back from me. So don't get mad. Don't forget, I'm going to say this and then I'm going to let you close it out, Corey. You can plug whatever you want. Don't forget, folks, I'm doing 10% off the entire website if you put VET in the promo box at checkout at KGTropicals.com. We just restocked on Northfin. We added the community and the jumbo formula on Northfin. We added some more of the green plecos. We got all kinds of stuff on there. So head over there and help us eat for another week. So there you go. Thank you all so much for hanging out, Corey. I'm going to hand it over to you and let you close things out.
All right. Well, thanks for hanging out. I hope you guys do come back. I hope I come back on the show. I hope we get more people as part of the other show. Make sure you utilize John's website, buy his stuff, get yourself some quarantine meds. That's why we came here tonight, talk about quarantine, that type of thing. You can check out my channel if you haven't already. I'm Aquarium Co-op. There's probably some of you in here that never seen me before, and now you're just thinking, this guy likes tacos and he's a complete weirdo, but, it's only about 50% tacos over at my channel, so there's still 50% of fish, too. But check that out. I do have a website. There's been a little delay in selling some of the goldfish just because I had to quarantine a little longer. I was in Chicago right before I came on. I put some more panda guppies back into stock. We've always got plants. And there's some things coming in the pipeline on my website, like right now going through quarantine, because we do quarantine. We've got some blue phantom plecos, and we've got some sultan plecos and stuff like that. So some more fun things are coming down the road. I hope to see you guys at conventions. I hope to get John to come along with me. And if you guys enjoy this,
I'm going to interrupt you, Corey.
Yeah.
I'm going to interrupt you because you're being very respectful, and I love it. I love that about you. But what he's not doing right now, folks, which he really should be doing, is talking about his website. He doesn't want to be disrespectful to me because I have a website. His website, Aquarium Co-op. If you want live plants, all of the supplies for those live plants. He sells medications too. He sells food, all that stuff. So he's got a great website too. He didn't want to tell you because he didn't want to disrespect me, but it's not disrespectful. So there you go.
I appreciate it. And as always, put the tank talk, so the word tank talk in the code. And when you're checking out, you'll save 10%. That's good. He'll get a commission. That's even better. So thanks for hanging out, guys. I know I appreciate it. I know John appreciates it. We're going to call it because if we never call these things, it's just going to be one long live stream. And then, I got to sleep and eat tacos at some point. So thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you guys next time.